The Galactic Federation had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years. Hundreds of species had been assimilated into its vast dominion, some through diplomacy, others through force. Its fleets were unmatched, its armies relentless, and its rule absolute. So when humanity was discovered, the Federation barely took notice. A minor, primitive species confined to a single world, humans were seen as little more than a curiosity, ambitious, perhaps, but ultimately insignificant. Their technology was rudimentary, their bodies frail compared to the towering warforms of the Tsar or the battle-hardened exoskeletons of the Drovan. More importantly, they lacked unity. The Federation spies observed constant political squabbles, rival nations at odds, and internal conflicts that would make their conquest little more than an afterthought. When the time came to officially integrate Earth, the Federation's ruling council saw no need for diplomacy. The choice was simple: submit peacefully or be crushed. Admiral Zalvorin, a veteran of countless conquests, relished delivering such ultimatums. He stood tall on the bridge of his dreadnought, the vanguard of order, staring down at the blue-green planet through the reinforced glass. Around him, the massive fleet of the 17th Assimilation Armada hovered in high orbit, their weapons primed, their troop carriers ready to descend. He tapped a clawed finger against his command console and initiated a system-wide transmission. "This is Admiral Zalvorin of the Galactic Federation," his deep, guttural voice echoed through every radio wave, satellite link, and digital network on Earth. "By order of the High Council, your species is hereby annexed into the Federation. You will surrender all planetary defenses and submit to immediate occupation. Any resistance will be met with annihilation." He leaned back, watching the countdown on the console. Based on previous conquests, most civilizations surrendered within minutes. A few, particularly stubborn ones, took hours. Either way, humanity's fate was already decided. Then, a response came through. The voice was firm, defiant. "This is General Robert Anders of the United Earth Defense Force," the transmission crackled. "We've reviewed your offer, and we have a counterproposal." Zalvorin smirked. These primitives always tried to negotiate. It was almost endearing. "Go on," he said, humoring them. "Go to hell." The channel cut off. For a moment, silence filled the bridge. Then, a low, guttural growl rumbled in the Admiral's throat. "Fools." He turned to his weapons officer. "Begin planetary bombardment." High above Earth, the warships of the Federation reoriented, their weapons charging with terrifying efficiency. The first wave of orbital strikes rained down upon the planet, lighting up the night sky in hellish explosions. Cities burned, shockwaves flattened entire districts, and firestorms turned streets into molten slag. The first hour alone saw the deaths of millions. But then, something unexpected happened. Earth did not beg for mercy. It did not submit. Instead, something the Federation had never encountered before began to unfold. Humanity adapted. Within hours, the planet's scattered nations, once at odds with each other, unified under a single banner. Governments, corporations, and private citizens alike mobilized on a scale unseen in galactic history. Factories that once produced consumer goods were repurposed overnight for war. The global internet became a massive intelligence-sharing network, coordinating counterattacks in real time. Earth's surviving militaries didn't crumble, they dug in. Then, they struck back. The first retaliation came in ways the Federation hadn't expected. Swarms of human drones, hastily modified and remotely piloted, overloaded the targeting systems of low-orbiting warships. Satellite-guided missile strikes targeted weak points in the Federation's blockade. Electromagnetic pulses from repurposed nuclear warheads disabled entire flotillas. The most shocking blow came when a Federation carrier was infiltrated by human hackers. Its own defense grid was turned against the fleet, resulting in the destruction of 3 battleships before the Federation could regain control. Admiral Zalvorin watched in growing disbelief. No species had ever resisted the Federation like this. No species had ever turned the tide within mere hours of being attacked. Perhaps, for the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar creep into his mind. Doubt. And then, a terrifying realization struck him. The war for Earth would not be easy. It had only just begun. The Federation's fleet had assumed total control over Earth's orbit would be a formality. A few blasts, a few show of force, and the primitive species would bow to their superior might. They never expected the retaliation that followed. Admiral Zalvorin seethed from the bridge of the vanguard of order, his claws gripping the console as the battle unfolded before him. The human resistance was a mix of crude, yet effective, tactics that defied all conventional expectations. I told you, the Federation's intelligence officer, a Crethian named Taru, said, his voice strained with disbelief. They're adapting. They're learning. Zalvorin hissed in frustration. The humans were supposed to fold. Instead, their resourcefulness was transforming what should have been a clean conquest into a long, drawn-out war. On Earth, General Robert Anders sat in a makeshift war room, staring down at the holographic map of the solar system. Satellite data poured in from every corner of the planet. Human resistance was active on every continent. They had mobilized their forces, not just militaries but civilian engineers, scientists, and tech experts, all working together in ways no one could have predicted. We can't take them head-on, Anders said, his voice low and contemplative. Their fleets are too strong, too advanced. But we can outmaneuver them. We've started sending coded messages to every colony in the system, a communications officer added. If any of the Federation's occupied worlds are willing to join us, we'll have allies. The war won't just be Earth's anymore. Anders nodded. Humanity's strength was not in its numbers, but in its adaptability. They had taken what little they knew of the Federation's technology and turned it against them. It was time to make the Federation feel the sting of human ingenuity. The first major strike came from a seemingly insignificant fleet of human-made ships, a collection of old space freighters, stolen fighter craft, and outdated military vessels, patched together with scavenged alien technology. They were no match for the Federation's dreadnoughts in terms of firepower, but they had one advantage: unpredictability. Under the command of Admiral O'Rourke, a veteran of Earth's desperate defense, these ships moved like ghosts. Federation sensors struggled to track their movements, as they utilized advanced cloaking tech they had adapted from captured Federation devices. Earth's ships struck at key Federation supply lines, raiding convoys and stealing precious resources. In one daring raid, a fleet of human-made stealth ships slipped past the Federation's advanced patrols, targeting the Federation's most vital resource stations in the Outer Rim. They inflicted heavy damage, taking out refueling stations and key communication relays, leaving the Federation scrambling to re-establish control. But the most shocking moment came when a fleet of Federation warships, the Titanic Order, entered the Sol system. It was led by the legendary Admiral Varric, who had a reputation for crushing rebellious worlds with ruthless efficiency. His fleet was overwhelming, outclassing the human resistance by every measure. Yet, it was the humans who struck first. Admiral O'Rourke's fleet, using stolen Federation tactics and knowledge of their weaknesses, launched a surprise attack on the Titanic Order. The Federation's formations were disrupted by cunning flanking maneuvers and unpredictable ambushes. Humans, with their limited resources, fought with an almost reckless determination, exploiting every vulnerability in the enemy's defenses. The battle raged for hours, with human ships darting in and out of Federation radar coverage, forcing their superior counterparts into a defensive position. The Federation's advanced AI-controlled fleets struggled to adapt to the chaos of human tactics. Even when the battle seemed lost for the humans, they found ways to make the Federation suffer for every inch of ground they took. By the time the Federation realized what had happened, the Titanic Order had been forced into retreat, leaving behind a graveyard of destroyed ships. The Federation had underestimated Earth again. They had expected to crush humanity under the weight of their superior technology, but instead, they had suffered their first humiliating defeat. Back on Earth, the victory was celebrated, but General Anders knew it was only the beginning. The Federation would not take this defeat lightly. They would retaliate, regroup, and come at humanity with everything they had. But humanity had already shown their true strength, resilience. They would not bend. And they would not back down. The war was far from over. The Federation, shaken by the unexpected defeat at the hands of a primitive species, was not one to sit idly by. Their arrogance, their centuries of dominance, had made them complacent. But now, the flames of humanity's resilience had sparked a fire that could no longer be ignored. Admiral Zalvorin, his frustration mounting, paced back and forth on the bridge of the vanguard of order. His once confident demeanor was now marred by the brutal reality of humanity's ingenuity. They had bested him once, but he would not make the same mistake twice. "Reinforcements are en route," Taru, his intelligence officer, reported. "We've gathered a full armada of battlecruisers and heavy bombardment ships. It will be enough to wipe them from the galaxy." Zalvorin nodded, his sharp features set in grim determination. "And this time, we'll crush them. Every last human." Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Robert Anders and the United Defense Forces were preparing for the inevitable Federation counteroffensive. The victory against the Titanic Order had been a glimmer of hope, but Anders knew it was only a matter of time before the Federation came for them in full force. "We've done the impossible once," Anders said as he stood before a map of Earth's solar system, the holographic lines of various defense routes crisscrossing in bright blue. "Now we need to outlast them. We're going to hit them where it hurts, disrupt their supply lines, cripple their reinforcements, and fight like hell every step of the way." Earth's war strategy had evolved rapidly since the bombardment. Initially, humans had relied on sheer willpower and guerrilla tactics, but with each passing day, they adapted more advanced technology. Captured Federation ships had been reverse-engineered, their weapons turned against the invaders. Human engineers had developed new alloys, shields, and energy weapons that rivaled the Federation's best. It was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a war for supremacy. But humanity's most dangerous weapon had always been its ability to think outside the box. Earth's most brilliant minds, scientists, strategists, and hackers, had developed new forms of warfare that the Federation couldn't anticipate. Instead of facing the Federation head-on, Earth's forces began using the galaxy's terrain against them. They set traps, lured fleets into asteroid fields, and hijacked Federation communications, sending false data that confused the invaders at every turn. The Federation was used to direct confrontation. But humanity's strategy was chaotic, unpredictable. The Federation's superior forces could no longer simply sweep across the stars, confident in their victory. Humanity's success in space warfare caught the attention of Federation member species who had long been oppressed by the Council. Rumors spread throughout the galaxy, of a small, insignificant species rising up and showing the might of defiance. It ignited hope. On the battlefield, the Federation faced a grim reality. Human-made ships, designed for asymmetrical combat, were proving more than a nuisance, they were a force to be reckoned with. Federation fleets, accustomed to easy conquests, began to suffer significant losses. And in the heart of the Federation's command structure, cracks were beginning to show. There was now a rising faction of dissent among the Council. A few members, who had once advocated for the annihilation of Earth, began to question the wisdom of continuing the war. The humans, they reasoned, were not some weak, subjugated species, they were a formidable foe. Perhaps it was time to negotiate. But Zalvorin would have none of it. He saw only weakness in the idea of diplomacy. He had already seen the humans' defiance firsthand, and he was determined to see them wiped from existence. Their very existence was an affront to the natural order of the Federation. A galaxy ruled by the strong, where humanity had no place. Meanwhile, General Anders knew time was running out. The Federation would regroup, and when they did, they would come at Earth with everything they had. Humanity had to strike hard, strike fast, and strike first. They had no choice but to turn the tide of the war in their favor. He was ready. Earth's forces were ready. But even more importantly, the Federation had severely underestimated one simple truth: humanity fought not just for survival, but for something greater. They fought for freedom. As Zalvorin prepared for his final push, the Federation's flagship fleet appeared over Earth's orbit, its massive silhouette blotting out the stars. The battle for the solar system was about to escalate to unimaginable levels. But this time, humanity was prepared. It was a fight they would not lose. The Federation's flagship fleet loomed over Earth like a storm cloud, its guns bristling with the promise of annihilation. Admiral Zalvorin had gathered the full might of the Federation's war machine, a fleet that dwarfed any the humans had ever seen. Thousands of battlecruisers, each bristling with weaponry capable of destroying entire continents, hung ominously in the void of space. This time, there would be no mistakes. But General Robert Anders was not afraid. He stood in a command center beneath the surface of Earth, surrounded by maps, tactical readouts, and holograms that pulsed with the heartbeat of the conflict. The weight of the war, the lives of billions, rested on his shoulders. But he had no time for fear, only for action. "We have one chance at this," Anders said, his voice calm but determined. "Zalvorin is coming in hot. We need to strike first, before they can deploy their ground forces. Their fleet is the core of their power. If we can cripple them in space, we'll have the upper hand." The strategy was bold, audacious even. The Federation had never encountered a race willing to challenge them on this scale. Humanity's entire strategy had been built on uncertainty, unpredictability, and fighting smart rather than hard. But now, they were fighting for the survival of their species, and there was no room for hesitation. Admiral O'Rourke, the commander of Earth's space forces, stood at Anders's side, his face hard as stone. "We've modified the jump engines of the last remaining human warships. With Federation technology, we'll be able to slip past their sensors and launch an attack directly on their flagship. The rest of the fleet will keep them distracted. Once we hit their command ship, they'll be lost." Anders nodded. The Federation was powerful, but like all empires, their arrogance had blinded them to the most basic rule of warfare: overconfidence led to vulnerability. They thought they had Earth cornered. They thought the fight would be a clean sweep. But they didn't know what humanity was capable of. Back in space, Zalvorin's fleet loomed closer to Earth. The final assault was moments away. His eyes gleamed with anticipation, ready to wipe the last vestiges of human resistance from existence. "We have them," Zalvorin sneered. "Activate bombardment protocols. Begin the decimation of Earth." But as his orders went out, something went wrong. A series of coded signals, transmitted in rapid bursts across Federation communications, caused massive interference throughout the fleet. Sensors flickered, tactical data went offline, and sudden glitches in the targeting systems wreaked havoc on the Federation's coordinated assault. "What is this?" Zalvorin growled, slamming his fist against the console. "How is this possible?" "What the hell?" one of his officers muttered. "We're being jammed from within our own fleet." The humans had done it again. Using reverse-engineered Federation technology, Earth's forces had infiltrated the Federation's communication network. They had hijacked the transmission lines, sending misinformation to confuse and disorient the attackers. The Federation's once imposing fleet was now thrown into chaos. In the midst of this turmoil, a small fleet of human ships, faster, more maneuverable than the Federation's heavy warships, slipped through the gaps in the Federation's defenses. They jumped in close to the flagship vanguard of Order, the heart of the invasion fleet, undetected. Admiral O'Rourke's team had made it. Their assault was swift. Coordinated attacks hit the flagship's vulnerable points, disabling key systems and shutting down its defensive shields. Federation soldiers aboard the Vanguard were caught off guard, scrambling to repel the human forces that had infiltrated their command ship. Zalvorin's fury was absolute as he realized what was happening. The humans weren't just holding their own, they were fighting back with terrifying precision. "We cannot lose this ship," he roared, his voice booming through the command deck. "Do whatever it takes. Bring it down." But it was too late. A well-placed strike from a human missile tore through the Vanguard's hull, breaching its core and setting off a chain reaction that ripped the ship apart. The massive Federation flagship, the symbol of their dominance, burned in space, its wreckage scattered across the cosmos like the ashes of a fallen empire. The Federation fleet faltered. Without the flagship to guide them, the remaining ships were disoriented, their formations collapsing. The humans had struck at the heart of the invasion, and they had succeeded. On Earth, General Anders and his commanders watched the battle unfold through live feeds. The cheers were deafening as the Federation flagship disintegrated in a ball of fire. But Anders remained focused, his mind already calculating the next move. The war was far from over. But this was a turning point. The Federation's greatest mistake had been their underestimation of humanity. They had believed Earth to be weak, fragile, insignificant. But they had failed to grasp one simple truth: humanity was resilient. And now, the Federation knew the cost of that mistake. The destruction of the vanguard of order sent shockwaves through the Federation. The flagship, the heart of their invasion fleet, was lost, and with it, any semblance of order in the massive armada now scattered in disarray. The remaining Federation ships limped away from Earth's orbit, damaged and rattled, but not without a promise of revenge. In the Federation's High Council, a tense silence filled the massive chamber. The members, once united in their conviction to crush humanity, now looked at each other with suspicion. The humans had done the impossible, they had struck the Federation where it hurt most. Admiral Zalvoran's face twisted with fury as he stood before the council, his voice dripping with venom. They will pay for this. We will not let this failure define us. I demand reinforcements. Full-scale retaliation. We will burn their cities to the ground if necessary. But not all members of the council shared his bloodthirsty resolve. A few of the more pragmatic members exchanged glances, their voices low. Perhaps it's time to rethink our strategy. These humans, they're different from what we've faced before. Their ingenuity, their resilience, it could be a mistake to push them too far. Zalvoran cut them off, his claws scraping against the floor in frustration. Do not be fools. If we hesitate, if we show weakness, they will strike again. We will finish what we started, and we will wipe them from the stars, Despite the murmurs of dissent, the council ultimately sided with Zalvoran. The Federation would not accept defeat. If humanity was to be eradicated, it would happen by their hands, and their hands alone. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders were far from complacent. General Robert Anders knew that the Federation would not allow the loss of the vanguard to be the end of their campaign. The Federation's retaliatory force would be swift, and likely, it would be devastating. But humanity had tasted victory, and they would not be cowed. We've made them bleed, Anders said, pacing the command center. Now we need to make sure they know we're not going to just roll over. His thoughts were interrupted as a communications officer rushed to his side, wide-eyed. General, we've intercepted Federation communications. They're regrouping, and we're hearing rumors of a massive retaliatory fleet being readied. They've called in reinforcements from across the galaxy. Anders exhaled slowly. This was the moment they had been dreading. The Federation wasn't just going to sit back, they were preparing a full-scale assault. We need to prepare for the worst, Anders said, turning to his team. We'll need to fortify Earth's defenses, and we can't rely solely on our space forces. The Federation will target every weakness. As the Federation began assembling its reinforcements, Earth scrambled to bolster its defenses. The human forces dug in, preparing for a fight that would be unlike anything they had faced before. Satellites were fortified, shields were reinforced, and weapons were retooled for the coming onslaught. But the humans knew they couldn't rely solely on brute force, they needed to outthink the Federation once again. Human engineers worked round the clock to complete a new class of weapon, one that could shift the balance of power in a single blow. Humanity had been given a glimpse of the Federation's true firepower, but the Federation had also underestimated human ingenuity. What they didn't know was that Earth had developed a weapon capable of turning the tide of war, a planet-killing bomb, using modified Federation tech. But it was a weapon that required precision. Meanwhile, a small band of human spies had infiltrated a Federation shipyard on the outskirts of the Sol system, gathering critical data on the Federation's construction of new superweapons. These spies risked their lives, but the intelligence they brought back would prove invaluable. The Federation, now fully aware of humanity's potential, launched their first wave of retribution. Massive fleets arrived in the Sol system, their sheer size dwarfing anything Earth had seen. Thousands of battlecruisers, destroyers, and assault carriers deployed into orbit. The Federation had come with one goal: total annihilation. As the Federation armada approached, Anders and his forces braced for the coming storm. The humans had shown they could win against the Federation's technological superiority. But this time, the Federation was ready. "Lock all defenses," Anders commanded, his voice steady. "This is it. They won't stop until we're gone. But we will never give up." Humanity had defied all odds before, but now, they stood at the precipice of an all-out war, where survival would mean not just defeating the Federation, but proving that Earth was a force that would not be erased. The battle for Earth was about to enter its darkest chapter, and the Federation was about to learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. The Federation's fleet was massive, an unstoppable tide of warships bearing down on Earth with ruthless determination. Each ship in the fleet carried the weight of a species' arrogance, decades of unchecked power, of worlds brought under their control without so much as a second thought. But now, that arrogance had its price. General Robert Anders stood at the heart of Earth's military command center, watching as the Federation's armada blotted out the stars. This was it, the culmination of a war that had begun with the unthinkable, humanity's defiance against the might of the galaxy's most powerful empire. And now, Earth stood on the brink of annihilation. "We can't stop them all," Anders said quietly to his inner circle. "But we can make sure they know this war will never be forgotten. We've hurt them before, this time, we're going to break them." The Federation's tactics had been brutal, and they were growing more sophisticated with each passing day. Zalvorin had rallied his forces after the destruction of the vanguard of order, and now his fleet was poised to unleash the full weight of the Federation's military might. With reinforcements flooding in from across the galaxy, the humans had no illusions about the scale of the battle. But Anders had one last card to play, one that could shift the balance of the war. A new weapon had been constructed in secret, a weapon that could change everything. The Terra Fury, a planet killer designed with Federation technology, was humanity's final gamble. It had taken months to build, using the captured tech and reverse-engineered knowledge that had once been used to oppress them. The weapon was capable of destabilizing a planet's core, causing it to implode from the inside out. But Anders had made a critical choice: he would not use it on Earth. Instead, he would use it against the Federation. "If we can draw them close enough, we can deliver a fatal blow to their fleet," Anders explained, his tone firm as he outlined the plan to his commanders. "We'll bait them into our orbit, hit them with everything we have, and then strike with the Terra Fury. It's risky, but it's our only shot at stopping them." The plan was one of desperation, but humanity had never shied away from desperate measures. They had always fought with ingenuity, with hope, and with the unyielding belief that they could turn the tide when all seemed lost. Now, they would need all that and more. The Federation's armada continued its relentless approach, its vast number of ships forming an impenetrable wall of destruction. But what the Federation didn't realize was that humanity had lured them into a trap designed not only to destroy the Federation's warships but to send a message to the galaxy. "Are the charges set?" Anders asked his chief engineer, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Ready," the engineer replied. "Once the fleet is in range, we'll launch the Terra Fury." With the Federation closing in, the humans' forces engaged in a series of hit-and-run tactics, slowing the Federation's advance just enough to give them time to execute the final phase of their plan. As the Federation pressed forward, they focused on overwhelming Earth's defenses, unaware that humanity's most devastating weapon was preparing to launch. But then, in the heart of the Federation fleet, a change occurred. Zalvorin's flagship, the Reckoning of the Stars, became the focal point of the assault. Its massive guns fired relentlessly on Earth's outer defenses, but as the blasts rang out, a new wave of human reinforcements appeared, smaller, stealthier ships that used Federation technology against them. The battle had become a swirling vortex of chaos as both sides collided with catastrophic force. And that's when it happened. The Terra Fury activated. A deep hum filled the air as the weapon unleashed its devastating power. In a matter of seconds, the Federation fleet's largest formation, dozens of battlecruisers and support ships, was consumed in a burst of energy so powerful it sent shockwaves across the entire solar system. The Terra Fury had done its job, destabilizing the heart of the Federation's fleet, reducing ships to nothing more than floating debris. But it wasn't just the destruction of the ships that sent a message, it was the message itself. The Federation had come to Earth thinking they could annihilate humanity, wipe them off the map like so many insignificant insects. But in that moment, the galaxy saw something entirely different. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future of the galaxy itself. As the remnants of the Federation's fleet scattered, reeling from the catastrophic loss, General Anders knew that the war was far from over. There would be retaliation, there would be more bloodshed, but humanity had dealt a crippling blow. The Federation had underestimated Earth, and now, they would never forget the cost of their arrogance. The Federation had lost more than ships. They had lost their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. And Earth, the small, insignificant planet they had so casually dismissed, had proven it was more than just a nuisance, it was a force to be reckoned with. The remnants of the Federation's once mighty fleet drifted like broken shells in the void, their warships crippled or destroyed by the sheer power of humanity's last-ditch weapon. The Federation had underestimated Earth, and in doing so, had shattered their own dominance in the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power had shifted. Earth had become the symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for the oppressed civilizations across the galaxy. No longer was it the helpless backwater world the Federation had thought it to be. It was a new force in the cosmos, a force that would demand respect. The human victory was not just one of survival, it was a statement. The Federation had learned, too late, that the true strength of humanity lay not in their technology, not in their fleets, but in their unwavering spirit. Even against the greatest odds, humanity had risen. They had proven that a single species, determined enough, could change the course of history. Inside Earth's command center, General Robert Anders stood before a wall of monitors, each one displaying live feeds from the aftermath of the battle. The Federation fleet was scattered, broken, and retreating. Though the war wasn't officially over, the Federation's grip on the galaxy had been loosened, and for the first time, Earth had control of its own fate. The Federation is in retreat, Anders said, his voice calm but filled with the weight of the victory. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Admiral O'Rourke stood beside him, his arms crossed, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. We've struck a blow that will be felt across the galaxy. The Federation won't forget this, and neither will anyone else. The question now is, what do we do with our newfound power? Anders turned to face the Admiral, his eyes filled with resolve. We rebuild. We prepare. And we ensure that no empire, no matter how large, ever dares underestimate Earth again. We will be the ones who chart the course for the future, not the Federation. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. The once mighty Federation, which had subjugated countless worlds and civilizations, was now reeling from a devastating loss at the hands of a species they had dismissed as weak. Their arrogance had cost them more than just a fleet, it had cost them their reputation and their invincibility. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the oppressed races, the ones who had long lived under the Federation's boot, watched the humans' victory with awe. The tide of galactic power was shifting. The Federation had once been the pinnacle of order, the rulers of the stars. But now, there was a new power on the rise. And that power was Earth. Back on Earth, the people celebrated, but there was no time for complacency. The victory had come at a high cost, many lives had been lost, many cities had been damaged, and the Federation's retaliatory forces were not done yet. But the humans had learned something invaluable from their struggle. They were no longer just a planet of survivalists, they were a species that could thrive, adapt, and evolve. Humanity began rebuilding, not just its cities and infrastructure, but its place in the galaxy. They established alliances with the fractured civilizations that had once been subjugated by the Federation. Together, they formed a coalition of free worlds, uniting under the banner of liberty and justice. The galaxy would never be the same. General Anders stood at the helm of the newly formed Galactic Council, a meeting of representatives from the newly united species of the galaxy. He looked around at the diverse faces, alien races that had once been beaten down by the Federation, now standing tall beside humanity. Earth had led the charge, but they weren't the only ones who had suffered. The scars of war were felt across the galaxy, and the wounds of oppression would take time to heal. Together, we'll make sure that what happened to Earth never happens to any world again, Anders declared, his voice strong and clear. We've won the right to be free. And we'll fight to make sure that right is never taken away. It was a new dawn for the galaxy, a dawn in which humanity no longer had to fight for survival. They had earned their place among the stars, and they had proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, could ever underestimate the strength of a determined few. The Federation had fallen. And in its place, a new era was beginning, one where the galaxy would be shaped by the courage, ingenuity, and determination of those who had once been thought insignificant. Humanity had not only survived. They had conquered. And now, they would lead the galaxy into a new age.